The UK FAST trial first investigated the feasibility of a 5-fraction RT regimen only among BCS patients, but was first delivered once a week for 5 weeks and compared also to 5 weeks conventional. A subsequent fast-forward trial enrolled more than 4,000 patients, 6% post-mastectomy, and with an accelerated 5-day scheme delivered in only a week, and compared this to a 3-week regimen and found non-inferiority for local control. This was actually a 3-arm trial and found that a 1 gray increase was more toxic than moderate hypofractionation. The problem with ultra-hypofractionation is the underrepresentation of patients needing nodal RT to the axilla and supraclavicular regions, which are typically found in our patients locally. The ongoing R-HEAL and Hypo-RT trials enrolled N1 to N2 patients and are currently investigating the safety of the fast-forward regimen for local regional RT. In the post-mastectomy setting, the trial from Beijing by Wang enrolled purely post-MRM patients at 820 and found no difference in local regional recurrence rates with 15 fractions of RT at median follow-up of 5 years, shown here on the graph on the right. In the setting of plastic reconstruction post-mastectomy, there are concerns of adverse outcomes for adjunct RT in general, let alone for doing hypofractionated techniques. So the RT CHARM trial investigated using the Canadian OCOG regimen for these patients and is currently awaiting full text publication. Meanwhile, the FABREC study published in the Journal of the American Society for Radiation Oncology, or ASTRO, enrolled 400 patients with immediate reconstruction after MRM and also investigated the same OCOG Canadian regimen, finding no difference in side effects with better quality of life for hypofractionation. For these next questions, some toxicity outcomes have already been discussed to be similar among the trials, but we will now delve into the specifics. For the START trials, toxicity outcomes were similar in terms of cosmetic breast shrinkage, brachial plexopathy, cardiac toxicity, and symptomatic lung fibrosis. Axillary lymphedema, which is a combined outcome of surgery and radiotherapy, was found more in the conventional arm, but not accounting for baseline edema pre-RT. Apologies again for the busy slide, but the left image shows similar cosmetic outcomes for the START and Canadian BCS trials, while on the right showed no significant difference in acute toxicity outcomes for the Chinese post-mastectomy trial in terms of dermatitis, pneumonitis, lymphedema, and heart disease. Another RT toxicity study was recently presented in the 2024 European Society for Medical Oncology ESMO Congress. The HYPO-G01 trial investigated 3-year incidence of arm lymphedema for a 3-week hypofractionated RT regimen. At a median follow-up of around 5 years, the hypofractionated RT arm was non-inferior, with 1/3 of patients having lymphedema in both arms. For the ultra-hypofractionated RT setting, on the left shows cosmetic and arm edema outcomes for 1-week versus 3-week regimens. Pertinent for our colleagues is the image on the right, which shows the timing of onset of skin toxicities for various regimens. In this graph, grade 2 acute toxicities are typically seen during our weekly on-treatment visits by patients during our usual 5-week conventional schedules. However, for 3-week regimens, incidence starts to peak from 3 to 5 weeks right after they complete or graduate from daily RT. Also important to note that for ultra-hypofractionation, toxicity in the skin also peaks the week right after completion of RT, then tapers off until the 4th week from RT initiation. It is also fortunate that we have local toxicity data for hypofractionated RT in the local setting. This is a single-arm phase 2 trial by my colleague and batchmate in residency training, published in 2022 and used the schedule by Wang. With a median follow-up of almost 2 years, 62% of patients had grade 2 dermatitis and 7% with grade 3 toxicity, all resolving after 3 months. With the evidence available as basis, let us now look into guidelines for hypofractionated RT. Both the American and European Societies for Radiation Oncology recommend hypofractionation for the vast majority of patients requiring adjuvant RT fitting these criteria. ESRO goes further in recommending 5 fractions as standard of care, also in light of socialized healthcare. For the UK and its NHS health system, hypofractionation is also much favored with stronger language used in its consensus statements deeming it standard of care as well. For our national DOH CPGs, hypofractionated RT is preferred particularly in the BCS setting. Aside from the local toxicity data from my training institution, we also have a commentary on the utilization of hypofractionation in the Philippines from a colleague from UST, published in the Journal of Astro. They narrated the hesitation of practitioners due to underrepresentation of the most common features of patient referrals we receive, such as those post-mastectomy and those requiring nodal RT. Another impediment identified is issues with health insurance since reimbursement is fee-for-service per instance rather than by disease or case. And lastly, is hypofractionated RT for breast cancer available in our institution? Our IMRT-capable variant unique LINAC and volumetric modulated art therapy or VMAT-capable Halcyon machines are both capable of delivering hypofractionated radiotherapy for our patients if ever indicated. These IMRT and VMAT radiotherapy techniques, as well as available immobilization devices and some organ-sparing techniques, allow us to deliver very conformal treatments to minimize late toxicities to normal organs. I will entertain questions during the open forum. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Benny, for that comprehensive presentation on RT. We will now open the floor to some questions. In the interest of time, we will be entertaining just few questions. May I request all the speakers to turn on their cameras and microphones as well. Okay, to start the ball rolling, we'll start with the lecture of Dr. Bene since ito yung medyo fresh pa. Is there a difference on the onset of skin toxicity during RT between 3 weeks and 5 weeks schedule?
Hello, good morning. Do you hear me po?
Yes,
Hello.
yes.
Yes, po. For that question, for our 3 fraction schedule, hypofractionated versus the conventional yung 5-week na fractionation. Typically for our conventional fractionated regimens yung 5 weeks, we experience, ako po I typically orient our patients that the side effects in terms of the skin, the dermatitis, appears earliest at around 3 weeks. Sabi ko pa nga, pag nag-double digits na yung days nyo, like day 10 na, ganun po, 3 weeks dun sila sa start. So, yung important po dun is, during follow-ups, we can catch it early on and until matapos yung radiation therapy sessions nila, na optimize pa namin sila, we can give emollients, steroid creams if needed, or clamazine, or even dressings depending on the patient's response. However, yung important po for hypofractionated regimens is the onset of there was a slide earlier there, the onset of skin toxicity is quite relatively early, and it might happen even after na matapos yung radiotherapy center session. So kunwari yung 3 weeks, yung 15 fractions, the skin toxicity might appear right before they graduate or after. So the important part for that is they need to still come with us for follow-ups the week after, and especially when they come back with our co-managing specialties and oncologists to catch these if ever po that if they appear right after, no, para na babantayan pa rin namin. For the 5-fraction regimen, yung 1 week lang dun sa graph, nag-peak yung incidence ng dermatitis the week after sila mag-finish yung 2nd week after completion of radiotherapy. So I guess that's the important thing to note there. Yung onset is quite different among the regimens. Thank you po.
And of course, that is very important. For Dr. Pao, You mentioned earlier and explained regarding the anatomic and physiologic screening. What is your comment? Of course, you have mentioned that mammography is of the gold standard. But what is your comment on utilizing MRI and ultrasound for breast screening as well? Is it just an adjunct, or can it has to be both, or can you do just the MRI and ultrasound?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Dr. So, you're correct. MRI and ultrasound remains to be adjuncts or supplemental studies for breast cancer screening. So again, mammography remains to be the gold standard. So, I actually get a lot of patients in the clinical setting, constantly asking me if they can just do the ultrasound because mammogram is painful. So what I tell them is that we can really miss something on ultrasound, especially if we're trying to catch the early forms of cancer, which can only be seen as microcalcifications and can only be detected by mammography. So for me personally, I think what has a lot of potential here is actually contrast enhanced mammography. So because in contrast enhanced mammography, we do get images similar or comparable to that of digital mammography to evaluate the calcifications. And additionally, we get the vascular based aspect of the imaging.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. I think our next question will be addressed to both Dr. Jen and Dr. Jean. Regarding HER2 enhanced breast cancer patients for whom PCR rate is almost 75%. So how do we monitor response, and what are the options for surgery after, or what are the other options? Dr. Jen maybe can answer first.
We see the patients regularly while they are undergoing the neoadjuvant chemotherapy care of our medical oncology friend. It depends on you whether you want to see the patient every other cycle or after every cycle to detect whether the tumor is indeed decreasing in size and whether the patient is tolerating the chemotherapy to decide whether we can complete the regimen and do the surgery after. Now, before the neoadjuvant chemotherapy is started and on follow-up, we ask the patient to think about what kind of surgery she would want if the tumor decreases in size significantly. Now, besides the other factors that you have to consider, such as genetic testing, wherein you do not have any choice but mastectomy. Pending that, then you can ask the patient, would you want to have mastectomy or partial mastectomy? If it's mastectomy, then you do not really have to run after the tumor, whether it disappears or not. But if your patient would decide to have partial mastectomy after, and the size of the tumor significantly decreases in size to the point that it is barely palpable, then that is, I think, the best time for you to discuss putting in the possibility of putting in a hydromark or a metal marker, ultrasound guided, into the tumor so that your to guide your partial mastectomy during the after the neoadjuvant chemo.
Yeah, to take off from what Jen mentioned, this is actually the beauty of working together with other specialties. We get to get the outcome that we need from our patients. At the same time, we also get their opinion as to what type of breast surgery they are amenable with. For HER2 positive tumors, we usually do chemo before surgery because the response after completion of the systemic treatment, especially if it's a complete pathologic response wherein the tumor is not visible anymore after surgery, also translates to a better overall survival. So giving chemo prior to surgery not only helps with getting better treatment outcomes from a surgery point of view, but it also helps us prognosticate in terms of how aggressive or not aggressive our patient will be for the next few years. Tin?
I guess, Dr. Jean, did I cut you? No?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
For Dr. Jean, Can all cancer patients receive tamoxifen as part of the hormonal treatment?
Tamoxifen has been present since forever. It's actually a very effective treatment for breast cancer. It's just that for postmenopausal women, there are newer drugs which are safer in terms of adverse events. Usually for elderly patients, one of the side effects of tamoxifen that you'd want to do without is blood clots. So yes, it is possible to give it for elderly patients, but since there's a better drug for elderly patients, we will prefer aromatase inhibitors instead of tamoxifen for postmenopausal women.
Thank you, Dr. And I think we're nearly at the end. We will be entertaining the last question. For Dr. Chito, Doc, should molecular profiling be routinely included in diagnosed cases of breast cancer patients?
It's imperative that these three or the regular the 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 two hormonal receptor status as well as your HER2 together with your proliferation index marker be included as a routine procedure in diagnosed cases of breast cancer. As was discussed by Dr. Jinjin, the prognostication as well as the risk for metastasis as well as the chances of it relapsing is being determined with the use of this proliferation as well as hormonal status receptor assays. So I guess whenever a patient is diagnosed to have breast cancer, the four markers should be included in the examinations done for the patient for better prognostication as well as determination of treatment protocols in the different subtypes of breast cancers as was discussed.
Thank you, Doctor. Do we have any other questions? I think I don't see any other question in the chat box. So with that, we will close the open forum and proceed with the awarding of certificates. The certificate of appreciation will be given to our beloved and our well-esteemed speakers. And the citation is as follows. In sincere acknowledgement of your valuable contribution as resource speaker during the Breast Cancer Awareness Month activity, given this 26th day of October 2024 at the Tamay Tower Perpetual Health Medical Center, Las Piñas City, or virtually here in Zoom. Signed by the hospital director, Ma'am Christina Consing, the executive medical director, Dr. Adrian Kidlat, and of course our president, Sir Richard Tamayo. Yes. Thank you.
May photo ba tayo? Sabay-sabay?
Yes, Doc, meron po. I think we will do it after the closing remarks or we'll do it now. Dr. Regine, we'll do it now po. Okay, sige po. So, we will request all our speakers and our participants to turn on their cameras for the photo op. Dr. Jeco, you'll be the one to take the picture, right?
Yes po, Doc, we'll take the photo.
We acknowledge the presence of Dr. Nadal and Dr. Largado. Thank you po.
Thank you. Thank you.
And of course, our other esteemed consultants, Dr. Magbogo, Dr. Iya Reyes, Dr. Jen Conde, I think I saw also.
Doc will be taking the photo na po. So everyone po, ready? Na count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Smile, everyone. Okay po, one more. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay na po. Thank you po, doctors.
Okay. We will have the closing remarks to be given by our Executive Medical Director, Dr. Brigadier General Adrian Kidlat.
A warm good afternoon to everyone. As we bring today's Breast Cancer Awareness Celebration with the theme, I Will Survive, Survivorship Issues After Breast Cancer, to a close, I want to thank each of you, survivors, loved ones, and healthcare providers for being a part of this meaningful event. Today, we honor the courage and resilience of all who have faced breast cancer and celebrate the strength it takes not only to survive but to thrive beyond the diagnosis. Let us carry forward the hope, strength, and knowledge gained here as we support those navigating life after breast cancer. To all survivors and their loved ones, you inspire us every day, and we are honored to stand with you. Thank you once again to everyone involved in organizing this event. Have a wonderful afternoon, and may we continue to live in strength and in hope. God bless us all.
Thank you, Dr. Kidlat. We would like to thank our sponsors for this morning's event. We also have another event later this afternoon on site. Okay. And also, this is a prelude to another MDT activity on January 2025 on hepatobiliary malignancies. So, see you po on January 2025. Kindly scan the QR code posted on the screen for the evaluation form. I think Dr. Jeco, you will also post it on the chat box, the link, or just scan the QR code. We will just scan. Okay, kindly scan the QR code for the evaluation form. Thank you very much. Yes, Dr. Jen Mercado. Yes, you're raising your hand.
Oh, thank you also to Jeco and the marketing team. And you, Dr. Polido, thank you also.
Thank you. Thank you po. Thank you everyone for this morning, very fruitful morning activity. So I think okay na po. We'll call it a day, a dare. So the evaluation forms, the link for the evaluation forms are posted on the chat box. Thank you very much. Oh, Dr. Lopez is also here in the audience. Good morning po, Doc.
Thank
We
you.
also have other consultants, especially, siyempre bias, from IRAS. Dr. Kaukom, Dr. Ladronia, I think I saw also in the audience. There are other consultants.
Recording
po.
stopped.
Dr. Magbo is here.
Yes, mentioned Dr. Magbo. And also later this afternoon, si Dr. Okay po, I think, yeah, that's it po. Thank you very much po for gracing this event virtually. Thank you po. So, see you po on January 2025 for hepatobiliary. Thank you po.
Hi, thank